Paguristes cadenati, forest, 1954. Family Diogenidae. This member of the deep-water genus Paguristes has not been reported from Curaçao previously. It is a medium-sized species, averaging about 8 to 10 millimeters in cephalothorax length. The color of the ambulatories and equal chelipeds is a very striking bright red. Paguristes cadenati was collected mainly with scuba equipment at several locations along the south shore of Curaçao. A few specimens were collected in the entrance to Sponce Water. More specimens were found on reef formations between Willemstad and Piscadera Bay, only below 5 meters, and although most abundant at about 10 meters, crabs were found down to about 15 meters. Between 15 and 25 meters, no specimens were found in the areas observed. Neither collecting nor field observations were carried out at night. The aggressive behavior repertoire of Paguristes cadenati is similar to those of other Diogenid crabs, and in particular that of Clibinarius cubensis. It is rather slow in its general speed of movements. As in C. cubensis, the vertical element of normal walking movements appear more prominent than in species such as Clibinarius tricolor. Both the ambulatories and the sculptured chelipeds are used in aggressive interactions. There are two types of stereotyped ambulatory movements. The standard ambulatory raise, which involves little forward movement, and a forward ambulatory movement. In the standard raise, the appendage is moved vertically through about 60 degrees until the limb is almost horizontal. The leg is held rather rigidly during movement, although the dactyl often does not complete its motion until the other segments are in place. The upward motion is carried out in 0.12 to 0.24 seconds. The second type of ambulatory movement is more complicated. The dactyl of the limb is moved in an imperfect circle, which is a bit flattened and pointed anteriorly. The limb is initially moved posteriorly and up and reaches a high point, horizontal to the substratum or a little higher, as it is brought forward over the neutral limb position. From there, the leg is moved forward and down, in a straight line to the point of furthest forward movement, about 45 degrees forward from the neutral position. From here, it is brought down and back. The entire motion is relatively uninterrupted and smooth. The upward motion takes about 0.36 seconds, while the forward-down-back motion takes 0.72 seconds. This latter movement was not as common as the standard ambulatory raise. Paguristes cadenati also has two types of aggressive cheliped movements, the cheliped presentation and cheliped extension. The presentation is as in Clibinarius cubensis. The cheliped extension brings the appendage to a position just below the horizontal in about 0.24 seconds. Shell-fighting behavior, positioning and wrapping proceed as in other crabs. The downward motion of the wrapping pattern always occurred in less than 0.06 seconds. The upward motion was rather quick, taking 0.18 to 0.24 seconds. The majority of time of each cycle was spent with the aggressor in the fully down position. In this respect, Paguristes cadenati resembles Clibinarius cubensis and C. vittatus. Wrapping cycles vary in duration from 1.2 to 1.26 seconds. During wrapping, the shell of the aggressor moved a distance equal to as much as 1/2 the length of the cephalothorax. Series of wraps in this species generally did not include as many wraps as in most species. In one interaction, the loser was extracted after only 9 wraps. In addition, the aggressor clearly helped popped the loser out of its shell by pulling on its chelipeds with its own chelipeds. The sexual behavior of Paguristes cadenati can occur before the female has molted, while she is still carrying a set of well-developed eggs. In 3 of the 4 matings observed, the pair copulated and separated while the female was carrying a well-developed brood. The sexual behavior involves a number of patterns of movements. From an opposed position, with his chelipeds just in the aperture of the female, the male moves her shell back and forth, about an axis running parallel to the female columella axis, at right angles to the anterior-posterior axis of the male, and he may execute another movement, about an axis through and perpendicular to the plane of the female aperture. In addition to these 2 types of rotating movements, the male moves the female from side to side along the length of the first mentioned axis. In all these movements, occasionally the male, rather than the female, moves during these behavior patterns. This is more common when the female is almost as large as the male. The males of Paguristes cadenati in the observed matings were 3 to 85% larger, average 41%, than the females. In addition to rotating and shaking movements, the male often carried out a short series of cheliped movements during pre-copulatory behavior. The chelipeds are moved up and down alternately in the aperture of the female. After some minutes of all these behavior patterns, the female began to move out of her shell. As the female moved up, the male grasped either her ambulatories or chelipeds with his chelipeds and appeared to pull the female out. If her chelipeds were free, the female moved antennules and chelipeds about in the eye-stalk mouth region of the male. Both crabs then moved out of their shells, further than in other species studied. The anterior of the male's abdomen was clearly exposed when in copula. In the copulatory position, the ambulatories of both sexes are fully extended and intermingled, similar to the position seen in the pre-copulatory sequences of Clibinarius cubensis. The male chelipeds continue to hold onto female appendages and are doubled back. The 5th periopods of the male move between the pair during copulation, and the posterior part of the male cephalothorax moves up and down periodically during copulation. Unlike other hermit crabs, the pairs remained in copula for many seconds, and in one case for 2 minutes. No long-term post-copulatory behavior was observed. The male did move its chelipeds up and down and rotate the female for about a minute in several cases, but the female appeared to succeed in chasing the male away and attaining the upright position rather quickly after copulation. In the one case where the post-copulatory female had new eggs in place when examined, she had not been disturbed or her shell opened until 42 hours after copulation. The diel variation in activity is shown in Figure 19. As can be seen, the crab is active in an anti-crepuscular pattern with a nocturnal emphasis. This applies to both the locomotor and feeding behavior. Perhaps the decrease in activity at dawn and dusk may enable Paguristes cadenati to avoid competition with and/or predation by crepuscular organisms. Figure 19. Diel variation in activities of Paguristes cadenati, all activities anti-crepuscular, nocturnal.